All right, recording is live. Make sure. Okay, we're set up correctly. All right, so today, let me just move my windows around here a little bit. All right, we'll give everyone a few minutes to roll in, and then we'll get rock and rolling about 12:03. Still have my positions open this morning. I'm not really screen sharing in the Discord. I guess let me turn that on for you guys just so you can watch. Have something for your eyeballs, I guess. And I'll talk about something interesting today. We're going to talk about game theory. You guys are going to hate it. What's up, Duco? How's it going? How's it going? Oh, no. Oh, you can't stay? That sucks. Is it because of your warrants? Got them warrants? Oh, you're getting firewood? Okay. Yeah, go do what you got to do, man. This is recorded. You'll be all right. If you have any questions, though... That's a loud motorcycle. If you have any questions... oh, you don't watch recordings? Okay. That's fair. Is that a gay slang thing? It's about to be. You're a gay slang thing. I don't know what that means. Oh, you got that firewood? Okay. Fair enough. Couldn't listen to Robot Pookie voice in past life? That makes sense. I gotcha. We're conditioned to avoid things we're attracted to, right? All right, so we got maybe a couple more people in here, and then I want to talk to you guys about a really cool thing that our brain does. If you guys have any questions along the way, obviously feel free to ask them in the chat. We're going to talk about a interesting little study that was done. I'm going to ask you guys a series of questions here. You'll be fine, Duco. Go get that wood. Enjoy your weekend if I don't see you later, by the way. No, we're not getting dark today. Sun's out, guns out. We're good. All right, let me just make the first poll here. Okay, I'm going to ask you guys a couple questions here. All right, choose one. Okay. All right, I'll put 1 hour on that one. Begin. All right, you got two choices. You must choose one. Click whichever one you feel is most appropriate. You have a 100% chance of winning $1 million or an 89% chance of winning $1 million, 10% of $5 million, and 1% of the time you will get $0. Choose wisely, A or B. We got a couple people in here. Ooh, so far 1 and 1. That's interesting. I encourage everyone to vote here. Let's go ahead and participate. That's going to be a good one. If you can. If you can't, that's okay. I'm curious what you guys think. Now remember, you're walking into this with $0. We're offering you a chance, a 100% chance of winning $1 million, or an 89% chance of winning that same $1 million, 10% of winning $5 million, or 1% of $0. So there's 100 people in a room. 10 of them are going to get $5 million for that second one. 89 are going to get $1 million, and one guy is going to leave empty-handed for the second option. First option, everybody leaves with $1 million. Got 5 votes so far. Option 1 is pulling ahead. Looks like you guys want that certainty. Snowflake says if I had $1 million, then 5 is here at 10 years away. No brainer. Okay. Y'all have your reasons. I'll give you guys another 35 seconds to choose 1 or 2? Anyone telling you $1 million is $100 million, 100% for $1 million is liar, needs to be locked up? Well, you may be surprised here in about 20 seconds. So far, the votes are 4 and 2. It's an interesting little split here. I love it. Been a 1% all your life? Oh no. All right. So most people, as you can see here, 5 and 2, prefer option 1 because of the certainty. Because again, you're just getting $1 million for making a choice, right? Now, if you pick the second option, you're sure you'd leave with nothing. Okay, so you want to avoid that very small chance of getting nothing. Okay, that makes sense. So let me grab another one here. Choose 1. All right. Now, you've got... Let me just type these out here. This is going to get complicated. All right. And we'll give it 1 hour on that one. These will just pop up in an hour and be like, oh, this is a result. Well, we already know the result. I'm just using these in the short term. Okay. Choose 1. Choose wisely. Choose now. You have an 11% chance of $1 million, 89% chance of $0, or 10% chance of $5 million, or a 90% chance of $0. Okay, I'll give everyone till 12:10 here to choose on that one. Oh, 8 votes. There's a lot more voting going. 10 votes. Wow. I'm getting a breakout here. Guys are a lot more engaged with that second vote, aren't you? Now I know my audience. It's more complicated, I'll tell you that. Okay. All right, we'll give everyone 40 seconds. We got 11 votes here. Pretty neck and neck. There's just one extra person here voting for the second option there. 10% chance of $5 million, 90% chance of $0. And I'm curious to see who's voting for what. It's interesting. I like this. I like the difference here. This will work nicely. All right, but another 12 seconds, then we'll get moving forward on this. No, Epic, you're fine. 10% for you, okay. All right, it's 12:10. All right, voting is closed. We got a really good result. So, in the first prompt, you were given 2 choices. One was a 100% chance to win $1 million. The second was a more complex chance to win $1 million 89% of the time. 10% you'd get $5 million, and 1% you'd get $0. Most of you expectedly chose the first one, where you just get that bird in the hand and you walk away. 5 votes compared to 2 votes. The second one, you were challenged with a more complicated comparison here. 11% chance of $1 million, 89% chance of $0, or a 10% chance of $5 million, 90% chance of $0. So the common denominator here, and this is where we highlight a paradox. This is the LA paradox, by the way. Logically speaking, okay, our brain would default to certainty as it did in the first prompt, okay, which you guys did. You had the 100% chance of winning $1 million. And in the second one, the same certainty would have defaulted to you picking the first option. But instead, most of you guys picked the second option, which is interesting because that's where the paradox comes in. So if you took the 89% chance of winning $1 million from both lotteries, which would be the common consequence, you get exactly the same odds in both problems. Okay? So this is the certainty effect. Okay? And this is where the human brain naturally places an irrational and disproportionate weight on outcomes that are 100% guaranteed compared to outcomes that are very, very close to certainty, and that just disrupts rationality, right? Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. Charlie says 1. I love it. I love it. Sure. Okay, I like that. You just want your milli so you can go. Okay. All right. So basically, what we've highlighted here is typically what gets in the way with most of our trading. So we all know that consistent base hits are much easier to achieve and much more common than home runs, right? We have a much lower percentage of hitting a home run, and for every home run, there is a or several consistent base hits along the way. But we don't choose those. We choose the home run. We choose the big drawdown. We choose the more dramatic outcome because we want to violate certainty, because our rationality is skewed because of emotions, right? It's the expected utility effect, but upside down, basically. So when we have a choice to make, we as humans tend to be we fall into one of two categories depending on how that's proposed. Now, in the comparison there, you had only a 10% chance of getting another $4 million, an extra $4 million, right? Instead of just the $1 million or the 1% chance of getting nothing, right? So a lot of people avoid that 1% because it's devastating, right? Even though you're not really losing anything, you don't pay, you're just not getting more money than you walked into the room with. So instead of taking the 89% chance of $1 million, 1% nothing, $5 million at 10%, we typically choose the 100% $1 million, right? So then if we took the 89% out of the equation there, and we had the 1% nothing, $5 million at 10%, we would have 11% roughly of $5 million or nothing, which is the exact same odds, but with a bigger payout as the second problem. So that's how the math kind of gets there. But I want you guys to understand that when it comes to trading, whether you're investing or just building a savings account or anything like that, these are things that we have to recognize about our condition as humans, okay? Because this is where we run into problems as a species, right? We are either pro-certainty or we avoid it like the plague, depending on our context. And that's the key highlight here is the context. So when we're in the market, the context is different than when we're driving to work, right? Even though there's a lot of risk, and you could argue that the risk outside the market is much more significant because it could kill you, we have a certain approach. So I'm going to do one more, and I'm just curious what you guys are predisposed to. $1 million? Oh no, I lied. I gotta, sorry. I tried to put them in the same box, my bad. Okay, I'm gonna change some numbers around on you. And I'm just curious if that's going to change your answer. Alright, just gotta put some breaking up in here. Okay. And then I gotta do the same thing here. Alright. I'm gonna do a 1 hour timeout. Alright, go ahead and vote. I'm curious. I'm already projecting that I know what the answer will be, even though I've explained it to you guys. That's great. And Epic, you actually highlighted something specific that I wanted to talk about. This is good stuff. I like this. I got 4 votes. We'll give everyone till 12:17. I don't want to keep doing votes all day. I'm just curious where you guys land on this stuff. You need to start charging me? Oh, for your constitutional right to vote? Okay. But I pay taxes also, so I feel like it's built in. It cancels out. It's a zero net sum. No, you get it back in the form of roadways and whatever else. Subsidies, I guess. You get those clean, paved, smooth roadways. All right, interesting. So I got a 6-to-1 ratio here. You look like you're the only one at the moment. Oh, hey, what's up, Garrus? How's it going? Did you voted for the one? Yeah, nice. Okay. So, people who chose A, the first option, you deviated from the rational lottery choice to avoid the risk of winning nothing, which is what Epic highlighted. It's called the zero effect. People tend to participate more willingly in choices that don't involve a zero outcome. Okay. And people who choose the guaranteed outcome, even though it's a 1% chance of getting nothing, the other option was automatically more appealing because of the existence of that, even though you had a 89% chance in both scenarios of winning the same $8 million, right? And then we just broke up the 11% that remains, saying you either get $1 million, and that's it, or you get $5 million, or a 1% chance of getting nothing. So do you guys see how this demonstrates an inconsistency in our decision making? From a rational perspective, we should have chose what Kiara's chose, the second option, in most cases. You'd take that 1%? Okay. Snowflake says I'm consistently choosing something. Okay. I like it. I like the different perspectives here. So you have an aversion to a 1% chance of getting nothing, which is the same amount you started with. That's okay. That's how your brain works. I want everyone here to document how their brain responded to each of these 3 questions. Or choices, I guess. Because that tells you a lot about who you are and what your preferences are under the hood. You've been married before, you don't waste your time for nothing. Okay, fair enough. What's up, Babu Chris? Okay. And do you feel like your brain is making a comparison between the 10% and 1%? Do you feel like it's saying, okay, well, we have an 11% chance of getting nothing or an 89% chance of getting, $4 million extra dollars? And then that's outside of the 89% chance that exists for the 89%. Yeah, if you take that million, you gotta give it all back. Okay. Okay. And this is, for anyone who's ever, studied game theory or taken psychology, this is a utility function. It's you're comparing expected utility, right, to dynamic utility. So what that means is that you are letting the variable dictate your behavior based on whether or not it's a certain value, regardless of the size. Obviously, if there was a 50% chance of getting $1 million and a 50% chance of getting nothing, most people wouldn't want to take that choice. If there was a better choice, we'd weigh it differently. But because zero is existent in one of the choices, regardless of how big or small it is, we avoid that one in most cases, even though the rational perspective there should say that we should have chosen the other one because the the aggregate payout potential was much, much higher. So 1 in 10 people were getting $5 million. Right? 1 in 100 people, probably Epic, would walk away with nothing. Does that make sense so far? Sorry, I just got to respond to DM real quick. Okay. Now let me ask you guys another question. Who follows the same decision making when it comes to trading things like naked options? Okay. Let me create another poll. All right, 1 hour. Okay, not a setup for an attack. Okay, choose one. I'll give you guys just a minute on this, like minute 15 on this one. Would you rather invest in treasury bills or index ETFs? I'm glad you're here, Rod. Age matters here? To an extent. We're about to find out, aren't we? Ooh, 3-0. Wow, okay. 4-0. Nobody likes those treasury bills. 5-0. All right. Okay. Need to know more about treasury bills? Okay. So did you abstain or did you vote? Okay, you abstained. Okay, good. Okay, no vote. That is still good. That's valid. If you're over 75, you're taking treasury bills? I expected that would be the other way around. Have you met the federal government? Exactly. Okay. All right, let me just drop some attacks on you guys. If you are in the habit of selling your winners too early, and by that I don't mean, I personally believe that there's no such thing, but if you're not selling them within the same ratio as your losses, and you're taking bigger losses and you're cutting your winners short, that counts. If you're avoiding investments with better expected returns, if you're refusing to rebalance after you have a series of successes in the investment side, meaning your allocation ratio breaks due to profits, if you're holding your losing stocks too long, or if you chase safe stocks after the market crashes, you are subject to this certainty effect. Okay? And that is your brain wanting to lock in security and stability when it's confronted with a zero or negative potential value. Okay? That's why it's very difficult to, there's a zone where we tend to hold profits, and I'll draw that out here for you guys so you can all see it. Okay, let's say I've got a trade. All right? Let's say here's my cost basis. Here's my target, and let's say my stop loss is down here, right? Here I buy. Okay, I'll draw it over here. Here I buy. Price goes up, kind of does one of these numbers, maybe does a little bit of this, kind of pulls back a little bit, and it kind of goes up, and then it shoots up, right? And then it kind of does one of these numbers, and it starts to pull back a little bit, and then it shoots up again, right? There are areas here where our brain is going to have different value weighting schemas, right? So from here to here, okay, the brain is going to struggle. okay? Because your brain, that's not it. Just trying to draw the end of the word instead of the rest of it. Because your brain is going to want to cut these short to lock it in. Strouge, yeah. Right? And we've all done this. We've all run into this wall where we say, all right, I don't like what's happening here. And it's usually not based on something we see other than just the velocity changed, right? It just slowed down a little bit, or maybe it changed a little bit flat. Doesn't mean it's necessarily going down below your break even. It just means that you've seen something change the rate at which it was happening before, and your brain perceives that, right? So all of a sudden, that takes this original risk that you were willing to accept, and it bumps it up. And we short circuit ourselves this way when we don't really deserve to. Now, I'm not saying there's not a time and a place to just cut a position, because there absolutely is. But if you're doing it just because of your perception changing and how you feel about something that's not objective, you are short circuiting yourself. You're cutting your profit, quote unquote, too early in that case. But you can also argue that discomfort means, you're not yourself, and you should probably take that off the table, and that's okay. Our job is to expand our tolerance, right? But not necessarily expand our risk. So your brain tends to struggle here, and then what happens, right? We go up here, we hit the target, we say, yeah, let's lock that profit in, and then we don't, right? Because there's more on the table. We want to make more and more and more. Our brain takes over and says, I want more of that. So let's see how high it goes, right? And it goes up here, and we struggle a little bit more, and we're like, right? We're going to have some uneasy feelings about this, but we're super hopeful and euphoric because of what we saw going into that. And then we see maybe a little bit of tolerance here, a little bit of compromise. Maybe we didn't lock anything in yet, and then it goes higher, right? And then what do? We want more, right? And then it goes down. Because we couldn't accept good enough as good enough, we deviated from this original plan, which just says, buy here, trade it up to here, do something there. If it goes down here, do something there, right? And that something can certainly allow for continued profits if you scale out. But that's not what we did. We didn't even scale out anything at this point. We struggled here, and we either sold out completely because we didn't want the uncertainty, and we wanted that non-zero choice, the non-harmful choice. By watching our profits potentially disappear, we decided to rule that out and prematurely cut the position. Or we were euphoric, and we wanted a disproportionate return than what we originally expected because of the certainty effect. So there's a definitive threshold here within our trades, and it's up to you to figure out where that is. So if you're not scaling out, you really shouldn't be taking action, in my opinion, until one of two conditions is met. And that's either that you're stressed out, meaning you're not at baseline, or you see something on the chart objectively that tells you that it's time to go. If you're doing it for any other reason than that, and you're not doing it for the sake of making good decisions in a stressed out state, you probably should just take your hands off the keyboard for a little bit and see why you're feeling what you're feeling, okay? And I'm not talking just about day trades. I'm not talking about fast-moving, low-float trash. I'm talking every trade you're in, whether it's a rest or retire thing, whether you bought indexes, whatever it is, okay? If you're not able to follow your plan, you need to sit in that feeling and discover why. And you have to have that conversation with yourself. But does everybody here have the ability to relate to this box right here, this struggle box? Most traders cut themselves short. My plan is that I'm right. Does everyone else here understand this box here? That euphoric box. Where despite being in really good profit potential, we just want more for some reason, and we self-destruct. Right? And it's not fun. And when it's red, yeah, you got to take it personal. You're being robbed because they took all your profits away that you had. Right? That's not fun. And it's the same thing when it comes to like your portfolio ratio, for example. If you originally planned to have, 60% stocks, 60% stocks, 40% like passive income, for example. Let's say you're being pretty aggressive, okay? And you're suddenly, your stocks blasted up, and now 80% of your value is in stocks and 20% is in passive options, right? Just because those stocks like ridiculously outperformed, right? And you don't rebalance. You don't lock in any of those profits. You don't bring that ratio back, trim those profits, and maybe put some of those profits into passive income. then you're not choosing the rational solution there in terms of expected utility. So it's a very, very difficult thing to accept about ourselves, but your brain will always choose one of those two, and it's up to each of us to figure out how our brain weighs that potential for zero or the potential for negative as one of the choices, and whether or not that overrides our rationale and logic when it comes to choosing between two things. So if you're doing things just to avoid a potentially negative outcome, you're not making good decisions in most cases. And when I say good, I'm not talking about good or bad. I'm just saying efficient. You'll let it go to $0 before you admit you're wrong, and that's fine for you. But is that working out for you? Are you getting entertainment value from the market? Are you getting what you pay for? Or are you making a profit? You don't want to talk about it? Okay. That's understandable. This is not the therapy class. I agree, but this ain't therapy. This is work. We're turning you into a better manager of risk, professional manager of risk. Because what you've done is you are allowing your identity to influence your risk preference. It's occupational therapy. Okay. So who here is confident? Just quick show of hands. Who here is confident in their preset rules for their trades, regardless of what type it is? Just having a clean set of rules. That includes position sizing, asset type, buy strategy, sell strategy. And of course, technical analysis. It's a lot of IWM shares in one shot. That's probably an institution. I mean, there you go, Porter. You know, we're not rational creatures at the end of the day. We're rational when we tend to be rational, when we tell ourselves we should be rational, and we put in the effort and practice being rational. And in the market, we're not rational. So in order to be rational, we have to have some context for ourselves, which means we need to build some rules. We got to have guardrails so that we can identify when we're going over the boundary. Like if anyone here has ever played any kind of like H1Z1, or I think Call of Duty has it too, where there's like a ring of gas around the combat area. It's a shooting game. And then it shrinks, forcing everyone into a smaller area. And it's like a last man standing kind of thing. Trading should be the same way. But those games know, you know that you're outside the boundary when you see the visual thing and your character starts like coughing or whatever it is, and you start taking damage. Trading is the same way. You start taking damage as soon as you go over that boundary. You don't want to stay over there very long. Hard part is following the rules. Absolutely. You don't have any accountability, which is where part of your rules should be self-awareness. You have to be able to sit in discomfort and have just a raw conversation with yourself about what you're doing without blame. Absolutely hold yourself accountable, but do not blame yourself. You have to recognize you're human. You have human parts. You have human wiring. You have human chemicals, and they are going to do things that maybe you don't always want to do. You cannot control your breathing forever. You can't control your blinking forever. These are automated things based on how your brain is wired, and you have to focus on them. Like everyone here, just try to feel your tongue in your mouth. How's it feel? You can probably feel it when you're focused on it, but day to day, hour to hour, you're probably not thinking about it. There you go, Nikki. Right? When you're stressed out, you also need to be able to become aware of that and focus on it. So if your shoulders are tense, if your posture is suffering, sorry, if you're not breathing effectively, if you're breathing too much, if you're all adrenaline spiked out and you've got, dilated pupils and your heart's beating a million miles an hour, you got tingling left arm all of a sudden, that's time to slow down. You're about to have a heart attack, sir. That's two extremes there. You've got slouchy posture, too relaxed, and then you've got the adrenal response, which is anti-relaxed. So somewhere along the way, you exist in between those 2 points. So your state of elevation, your state of excitement is a gradient, and it's up to you to figure out where you're at. And how you identify that is by looking at yourself. You can look at your bodily state, you can look at your emotional state, you can tune in on the things that you're telling yourself as you're narrating your day, and you can do awareness checks on a regular basis and develop that skill, because if you don't get a hold of this stuff, it's going to take control. It's going to get a hold of you. And it's doing that now for most traders, and it will continue to do that for most traders until you figure out how to become aware of the influence your perception has on your decision making, like we just did those polls, and where the contradictions are within your decision making. So if, for example, you want to make money in the market, you want to take a safe approach, you want to compound consistent base hits, and you're all of a sudden trading a bunch of options trades, you're contradicting yourself. You're not choosing certainty and consistency. You're choosing high risk, high reward, and that's okay, but it may not be appropriate for you at that time on that account. So you have to sit there and figure out what is driving you to do that. What is causing you to pull up the options chain, and what is causing you to look up a ticker that is primarily traded with options like SPY or Tesla. And then you have to just drill in and figure out what drives that, because that's what's going to keep that cycle going. And that's what I'm here for. That's what everyone else is buying it. Okay. If you want to. Chronic dopamine deficiency. If you're talking about like the thrill-seeking element of it, that can be a part of it, but you can also reframe that so that you get your dopamine from fulfilling a challenge of following rules and successful execution. ADHD. That we got a couple of people here that have that. That's definitely puts some challenges in the way. Dependent on action. Epic. So we started with some fun games. We had some choices to make, and we demonstrated there were conflicts in the logic driving those decisions. Even after that was explained, which is why I'm saying, hold yourself accountable, build your rule set, understand your rule set, make your rule set easy to follow, but don't beat yourself up if you can't follow it, right? You guys all knew how the math works on these prompts that I gave you, and you still mostly chose the other side, basically. So, and that just is to highlight that we're not rational creatures in every scenario at all times. Right? Look at how much we freak out when we see like a spider, if you're someone that's afraid of spiders. Or if you're scared of heights, what's the first thing we tend to do? We tend to fall over. That's a horrible thing to do from a high elevation if you're looking over the edge. We get nauseous, disoriented, and fall over. That's not a good self-preservation instinct, but it's automatic. Or we clamp onto something, we get that death grip, And that's where we hurt ourselves. What do you got, Babu Chris? What's going on? What are you looking for? Oh, is that a short target? You short selling something? I did him. Oh, was that you with the 300,000 shares? We about to have a, okay. So we're going to have a billionaire in the chat soon. All right. Good stuff. So my goal for this stream was to highlight, A, you guys can be fully aware of the rules. I can tell you my strategy all day, every day, and there's still no guarantee you can follow it, which is why I share all the stuff, and then I try to help you learn how to follow it. And B, that this is all unique. It's entirely within your head. Everything, I don't want to go too far down the solipsism hole here, but that is a philosophical stance basically that says that nothing outside of your own mind can be proven to be true. So, for example, your experience of consciousness, okay, is different from my experience of consciousness. Therefore, I can't prove that your experience of consciousness is true based on my experience of consciousness. Okay? Everything that I know, everything I perceive, my reality is based entirely inside my own mind. I may see the color blue differently than the way Snowflake sees the color blue. We can both agree that it's a certain wavelength. We can see that it's a certain value in terms of brightness, but we may see the actual color differently. And that's solipsism enters the chat. He may be colorblind, and that's a really good thing to bring up, because colorblind people literally can't perceive certain things depending on the type of colorblindness. So it's like a blind person trying to see. You can't see out of your elbow because that's not where your eyeballs are. Your brain has to tell your eyeballs what it's seeing so that it knows what to look at, and your eyeballs automatically tell your brain things as it continues to just look. So everything you know, everything you've perceived, and everything you continue to perceive, which includes candles and wins and losses and the buttons that you push and the sensation of the mouse or key clicking on your finger or the phone screen, that all exists entirely inside your own brain. Okay? But there's power in that, because once you figure that out and you can control what's going on in your brain, there's a lot of influence there that you can regain, because then you can say, hey, I don't want to tolerate that. How can I stop tolerating that? And then you look elsewhere in your own brain and say, all right, well, I've created this. I'm responsible for this. I can control this to an extent. And if I can't, it's just because I haven't developed the ability to do so, which is also in my own brain. So your brain has a lot of power here, but if you just leave it to its default settings, then you're going to have a lot of habits and cycles. If you have ADHD, you can't control it? Yes and no. You can't control your obstacles necessarily, but you can control your perception and your responses to certain things. And that's where it's all rooted. You can't control circumstance. Like ADHD is a circumstance, okay? It's a condition which affects your attention and your thought processes and executive function and all that. You can't control a condition necessarily. Obviously, you can like treat it and manage it, and you can do CBT and stuff like that. But you have to delineate between what you can control and what you can't control. And you can control certain elements, like your responses to things, the way that you frame things and put things into perspective. It takes time, and it takes maybe extra structure if you do have something like ADHD. But whatever you can't control, you can't burden yourself with not being able to control. Like if I'm diabetic, for example, I can't control the fact that I'm diabetic. I can treat it, I can manage it, but I can't make it go away, right? I can control my behaviors, which exacerbate my condition, to the ability that I'm able to control them, but I can't control a random spike out of nowhere, right? I can control my response to that spike, but I can't just pretend. I can't will my way into doing it. And that's what we do in the market all the time. We try to assume the burden of things that we have no control over, and that's destructive at the end of the day. You have to be able to assign the burden of accountability to what you can control and limit it to just that. Not blame, although most traders end up blaming themselves for something they can't control, and that's just a double no-no. They say, I took a bad trade. I took a big loss. I messed up. I did this. I'm stupid. I'll never figure this out, right? We do that all the time. And it's always based on like the red number. It's very rarely based on a green number, unless it's I'm stupid because I didn't get more profit. I sold too early, blah, blah, blah. It's all very identity driven. And if we fall back to the phrase that every act contains the whole, you have to understand that if something is beyond your ability to control it, meaning a response to something, a reaction, it just means that you haven't expanded your capacity to tolerate everything within that range yet. So if, for example, I'm stressed out, okay, and someone is in my face making a bunch of noise, and I'm pushed over my limit, right, and I make a reaction, whether I yell back or push them or punch them or whatever, or just laugh or do something silly, that means that I've been pushed beyond my ability to control my tolerance, I've been pushed outside of my capacity, right? Which means I default to lizard brain, and lizard brain says resolve it with violence, right? We end him. Well, not if it's a drill sergeant. I mean, you go for it. I've seen it. It doesn't end well. Because they travel in packs. You don't want to do that. But you can't blame yourself for being stressed out. It's not something that's fair to do to yourself. You simply have a capacity, and it just got exceeded, right? Now, you can hold yourself accountable for the way that the way that limit was met and the way that your response manifested, and you can work on that, and you can kind of reprogram that stuff to the best of your ability. But if it's something that you can't control, you can't really blame yourself for it. And I know that's I'm not saying be a psychopath and just don't deal with consequences, but don't blame yourself with circumstance is what I'm trying to get at. So if your ability to hit a ball is limited to your ability to hit a ball, you can't blame yourself for your inability to hit a ball, if that makes sense. Especially if that ball is flying 200 miles an hour and you're swinging a toothpick, but we do that all the time in the market. Oh, there you go, Snowflake. That's awesome. 95% in range, dude. That's good stuff. I mean, it's not 97%, but just kidding. That's beautiful, man. I'm happy to see that. That's definitely worth bragging about. It will be soon. It better be. Better be. So again, just going back to the LA paradox, if we accept that we're human, okay, and we have limitations, we're inefficient, we're irrational, we're messy creatures. It's just got to be that way. No one's ever perfect. There's a lot of authority that you can extract from that over yourself, and I think that it would benefit everybody here to start doing regular just awareness checks. Just do a bottom to top. Focus on the feet, focus on the toes, focus on the top of the feet, focus on the ankles, focus on the shins. Where is my body tense? Where am I fidgeting? How often do I fidget? What is going through my brain when I fidget? Am I sitting properly? Am I able to breathe comfortably? Am I sore? Where are my sore spots? Is my throat dry? Do I have a headache? Are my shoulders tense? Is my jaw tense? What is my state at this time? Okay. What causes me to go away from baseline more often than not? Is it auditory stuff? Is it visual stimulus? Am I looking at a bunch of high contrast stuff all day, fast moving things? Am I constantly having to dart my eyes all over the place? Do I smell funky things because I'm in a weird environment? Am I burping a lot and I don't like the way that tastes? It's a very personal thing. But everyone kind of can benefit from it because that tells you the factors that lead to that threshold of your ability to tolerate stress. And the closer we can stay to baseline, the better, but we are not always going to do that. We have to accept that we're human. So instead of trying to shut everything down and ignore all your things that your body is trying to tell you, becoming aware of it ahead of time is more important so that you can manage your response before it escalates. Okay? So if you get into a argument with a spouse, for example, or a family member, and you're right, they're right, you're both disagreeing about who's right, rather than having that go into a full-blown argument, you can just say, I think it's better if we talk about this, blah, 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 or reframe it or something like that, or just simply back off. You can take a hit once in a while, it's okay. But if you don't, guess what happens? It can get messy in divorce time. I mean, if you divorce over one argument, I guess it would depend on what the argument was. But that if it does escalate, you are likely putting yourself in a situation where your ability to respond efficiently and effectively and compassionately in that situation is diminished because you are stressing yourself out. You're pulling yourself further off baseline. You're allowing yourself to deviate from baseline, and that's likely to lead in impulsive things. Okay? And that's exactly what we do in the market all the time. We push buttons. We start off at baseline. Maybe we have some anxiety about trading. Maybe we have some anxiety about past losses, but we're relatively aware that we're in the shallow end of the pool and we don't have to take, a whole bunch of big hemorrhaging losses if we don't have to. And then things just escalate. And then at the end of the day, when we transform back from being a werewolf into a desperate and loss-filled human, we wonder where it all went wrong. So instead of wondering where it all went wrong, let's focus on figuring out where it starts to go wrong and then pulling ourselves back. There you go, Epic. Building up the courage to ask my wife what the plans are for the weekend, knowing full well she may have told me a dozen times already. Absolutely. And that's when you can just say, hey, has anything changed about this weekend? I want to work in this. When's the best time? And why? You just got to work around it. That's all. It's not a priority. I know you got stuff planned, but I'm wondering about 4 o'clock. Can we move anything? Or what would you like to see prioritized first this weekend? Of all the stuff we got to do, what would you like to absolutely knock out first so it's not hanging over our heads all weekend? You know? You just got to find a better way to ask, that's all. And, next week, write it down. Like, just change who you are. Yeah, saving marriages. Well, I want you guys to be able to trade, and you can't do that if you lose half of it in the divorce. Plus attorney fees. The ghost of past loss is always there. Absolutely. Wish I had one of those Men in Black mind eraser devices. I don't, because losses can be powerful. And what that boils down to is, let me just draw. Okay. What this boils down to is a cycle that you need to figure out how to break, and you don't have to do it on your own. Okay. So when your brain has a challenge that it's running into, okay, there is a stack of potential solutions that your brain tries to map. All right. And in the case of trading, the challenge, the problem here is risk exposure, okay? Because you don't really feel the past loss nervousness until you're looking at a trade most of the time. You say, all right, I'm looking at this for a reason. I want to trade it, but I don't know if I'm going to take a hit here, right? You start flinching ahead of time, right? So what our brain does is it says, hey, here's a pattern. Here's a shapes and colors that we've encountered before. Here's maybe a little bit of an emotional experience that we had. We're in a state now, right? And then the brain is just going to say, hey, what's the most effective solution that works for us? And a lot of times it doesn't ask it that way, okay? Your prefrontal cortex says, hey, what's the most effective solution? The part of the brain that renders solutions hears what's the last thing that worked for us, right? What was the most efficient thing last time? What was the winner, the survivor last time? When we analyzed everything, what's the most effective thing for that one experience, right? So it pulls it off the top of the stack. And guess what? That thing led you to a loss last time. So in most cases, our brain doesn't have the ability to say, okay, well, this worked last time, but let's hold off. Let's look at the next solution, see if that's a better one, and then compare those two. Our brain doesn't do that in most cases. It says, here's an exact pattern. Here's a feeling that goes with the pattern. Let's do the thing that we do most often, or the most recent thing that we just did, right? We need to develop the ability to say, well, this isn't the only thing we should consider, right? We have to consider multiple outcomes. We have to consider multiple avenues of approach, right? And instead of grabbing this one or this one, maybe it's this one. Maybe this one just works the best because it protects us the most. So we can convince our brain to say, hey, let's favor this one instead because it's the safest one. It's the non-zero issue. Remember the zero effect and the certainty effect. So let's take this one, apply it, and then whatever the end result is, let's put that one on top of the pile instead, right? And that's what we call a correction, okay? So if, for example, you're standing at a batter's box and you've got a baseball bat and you see a ball come in and you close your eyes and swing. Give me one moment, guys. I'll be right back. That's not it. There we go. Sorry. One moment, guys. All right. Sorry about that, guys. Yeah, no, I had to mute. I had a personal conversation here. Okay. You're about down. No. Oh, no. Don't like that. I do have to cut this one off, though. Unfortunately, I got to go deal with something. I appreciate y'all hanging out. Hopefully this helped. The main point here is that we have to understand and accept that we're human. And being human is not something you should punish yourself for. So do not blame yourself for everything. Understand that you have limitations. And those limitations are driven by things like this and shapes and colors and your perception of things, and that you have a lot of power in understanding that your perception is your responsibility. And that's like root stoicism right there, which I have conflicting feelings about. But in a non-toxic positive approach, there's a lot of empowerment that could come with just recognizing that you can control your perception to the best of your ability in a lot of cases. And anything that you can't control in that realm, you have to just accept is circumstance as of who you are, and you can work towards that. Okay? So you're not a bad person. You're not stupid. You're not dumb. You're not irresponsible like Epic. You're just human. All right? So I got to jump off here. I appreciate it. Everybody is going to be in the Calendar Press stream in about a half hour with Bull. If you guys were with us in person in Trader's Paradise the last few years. And then we'll see you guys in Premium at the wrap-up stream at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. All right? I'll see you guys there. Thank you all very much. Sorry for cutting this one short, but I got to jump off here. I hope everyone here has a good day, safe weekend if I don't see you, and I'll see you Monday morning if you're in the Premium side. Adios. Order filled. Good stuff. All right, bye.